Warriors, I just got back from a trip to Washington, D.C., and I really wanted to share a couple of thoughts with you. My takeaway: our work with the Warriors not only includes education, raising awareness, supporting survivors, listening to survivors. We'll get into that a little bit later on, but also behind the scenes, a lot of policy work. Now, what does that mean? We need legislation, new legislation to address human trafficking, sexual exploitation, safety of our kids, anything with big tech, internet, you name it. We're there, we're part of it. So I'm resuming my work back in Washington in person. During the last couple of years, I've been doing a lot of it behind the scenes, straight from my home base of New York City. But now it's time for the Warriors to be physically there. I do my best work in person. I like to stare, see the reactions, look at the faces, just say to people, and you can understand when I do what I call almost preaching. I want to remind everybody, I did not pick this mission of trafficking, of exploitation, of safety for our children. It picked me, and I feel it is my duty to step up and represent all of those survivor voices, children who have no voices, those who are not strong enough to work in this field, advocate for this field, stand up, fight back, all of that. Here are my takeaways from Washington. I think of it as twofold. The real way to get work done is at the grassroots community level. That is in the homes, in the communities, at that local level, state level. Because remember, a lot of this, we don't have any kind of federal legislation. It's state by state. So right now in Washington, surprise, surprise, nothing is getting done. And my sources tell me nothing is getting done. Bills are not being brought to the floor. They're not being voted on. It is just a weaponization of everything. Not only all these child safety issues, but everything. So as I sat in, I just want to share, let me lay out the landscape for you. The Warriors, very honored and proud to be part of a round table in the Russell Senate Office Building, part of the Capitol, and the Senate Caucus Room. Now, the Senate Caucus Room is the room where they had hearings on Watergate, Titanic. So you can just imagine, beautiful big room, marble, crystal chandeliers. So I was sitting there thinking of the history. But it was a select group, round table, a lot of exemplary leaders from around the United States, plus survivors. We cannot ever hold a meeting, a round table, symposium. We have to always remember to include that survivor voice. I am not a victim of human trafficking, a survivor of human trafficking or exploitation. So we need their stories, their lived experiences to help us craft and mold policy, legislation, what's being done, what can be done better. So I was very honored to be part of this intimate group. And we went around and discussed, of course, who we are. And I knew most of the people in the room. And I noticed on the side that was representing our government that we pay taxes for, the legislative aides. It was supposed to be, now all of these issues, again, are bipartisan, belonging to no political party. And going into the room, we were told 11 offices were participating, right and left, Democrats and Republicans. And this is not unusual, but at the table, only their legislative aides showed up to represent the office. And again, that's not unusual. However, kudos to Senator Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, who has had on her agenda and is very passionate as a mom, as a grandmother, representing Tennessee, all of these issues with child safety. She's speaking out, she's speaking up, she wants to get more involved. She showed up and she spoke. And look forward. We're working on a little bit of an upcoming event in the months forward with perhaps Senator Marsha Blackburn and some other great people in DC. So I'll keep you abreast of all of that. But I couldn't help when I listened to these legislative aides giving an overview. Now, again, you're there because you're involved in trafficking. The majority of them, let me see how I can put this, were interested in more of an international human trafficking and also labor trafficking. Because when we talk about trafficking, it's usually sex trafficking, labor trafficking. The Warriors, of course, is interested in what's going on right here in our own communities in the United States of America. However, it does touch upon global as well, because, for instance, we have Mexico, what's happening there with the cartels running the border, trafficking, bringing women and girls, boys and men too, over the border. Not smuggling, I'm talking about sex trafficking, enslaving them, selling them also into forced servitude here in the United States, forced begging. I'm waiting for the day I wake up and I clutch my chest as I say this. We have this in other countries. We don't have it here yet. Forced child soldiers. That is a form of trafficking. And trafficking is, simply put, everybody gets caught up in a lot of explanations, forcing somebody against their will to do something that perpetrator will make money from. So that's it. But I'm sitting there listening and I'm thinking, not one person brought up big tech and what's going on with the internet. Well, Marsha Blackburn did. Nobody else. And they report almost kind of glassy-eyed, like they've memorized this speech, and that's it. Now, as we got around to the NGOs, for instance, in Lynn's Warriors, there's a lot of hope. You've got the Warriors. What more could you ask for? Because we've only just started, everybody. But you have some other good NGOs, people you'll never hear about, people who don't advertise themselves, who are building within their communities, building within their states, who said, yes, we're doing good work, but we need to do a lot more work. And one of the big areas that a lot of the survivors want to see is working on ending the demand, working on holding those accountable who buy sex. That is a big thing we don't talk about enough. No accountability, no laws created or enforced. People will keep buying sex. Therefore, becomes normalized. People become habituated. How can they get a thrill? Younger and younger kids they're buying for sex. Where is this all going? So I was very honored again to be part of Washington. And I did say my 2 cents, but that's private for the room I was in, just how I feel about all of this. And what the Warriors is doing to bring awareness into communities are 2 radio programs, every Saturday at 2 on TNT, every Wednesday on WVOX here in New York, how we are educating the public, how we are bringing expert guests, I'll call them, to share their knowledge, their information with you, their takeaways. The Warriors, we provide takeaways so you can get involved, because we need all of you. We can no longer do this alone. I tell you this all the time. Can't sit on the sidelines, especially because I'm reporting to you from, and will continue with my trips to Washington, reporting to you that a lot of talk and no action. You probably know that, but all the more reason what I saw yesterday. We've got to become warriors. We've got to handle this. I'll continue going to Washington and being a warrior and speaking my mind and speaking up for those who can't, protecting our children, protecting you, protecting families. But in the meantime, Washington, the feel of it, so different from a couple of years ago. I'll say even 2 years ago. Kind of a feeling of loneliness, emptiness, no buzz, no excitement. I pretty much stayed put, went to the Capitol and held meetings nearby with different individuals, and didn't feel the need. I always like, when I'm in Washington, when we're there, to hop over to a museum, even if it's for 45 minutes, or go see something. And the feeling was very kind of gloomy. And taking the train from Penn Station here in New York into Washington, usually Union Station, is a buzz, morning rush hour. Many of the restaurants and shops were closed permanently, very empty. It's almost like, if you're familiar with Grand Central here in New York, or some other train stations where there's a lot of marble and echoing, when you hear your heels when you talk, just empty, kind of empty, sad. But it reinforces face to face with our elected representatives, speaking to legislative aides, speaking to those who are supposed to be in power to enact all of this, to further it along. I have a very clear vision now of exactly what's going on. Not that I didn't, but it reinforces me to work harder. So I want you to understand we have to do the work. It starts in your home, starts with you. I don't care if you're not a parent or a grandparent, you've got family members, you've got community members. This is an American crisis. It's not getting any better. In Washington, they don't want it to get any better. It's unfriendly. It's unnecessary. And we are Americans, and we will protect our children, and we will take care of our children, and we will do everything we can do in our power ourselves. Always follow lynswarriors.org. I'll be loading on a lot of new information tonight, tomorrow for you, and reporting more on some of our initiatives for the new year. But remember, if you do one thing, well, besides follow the warriors, please put safety features, privacy settings on your children's devices. Please talk to your teens. They're kids. Those brains aren't developed. It's all around them. We can't blame them, whether it's exchanging nude images, whether it's using emojis to represent sexual words, whether it's just cursing, whatever it is. And there's no judging here. We have to help the kids. There's no such thing as, you're a bad kid. You made a mistake. We got to get away from that. Okay, this is the world we live in. Oh, you sent a nude image? You thought it was a girl? Yeah, you thought it was a boy? Okay, we're going to correct that. But what do you do? And that's what I want you to understand. There are resources that will help you immediately. Please, if you want to learn more, always National Human Trafficking Hotline.org. That's not just to report what you think might be human trafficking, or if you are involved in human trafficking and you believe you're a victim. You can call them just to find out local resources or how you can volunteer. But also, if you found a nude image or your child came to you or your teen, cybertipline.org. Cybertipline.org. And they will step in and they will help you. Always immediately law enforcement says to me, first step is call your local authorities, 911, and report this, because they will know. They work with the cyber tip line across our country. They will know in your moment of perhaps panic, fear, whatever it is. Just know these are crimes against you, your families, and our precious children. And they are not allowed, and we are not going to allow the predators to win. And we're going to take action. And in 2023, we're all going to become warriors.